I'm visiting with Bill Sargent today. Bill is a candidate for Congress in the 14th District, which includes Galveston County, or part of Galveston County. Bill will tell us all about the geographics of it and his platform for all the things, Bill, that you're going to do when you get to Congress. Tell us about it.
Well, let me start with a story.
Yeah.
About a man who lived back in the 1860s. He was elected to Congress from California. I'm telling you this because by way of background. He was elected to Congress from California. He came from California to across the Isthmus of Panama, because back then they didn't have trains, and came up to Washington, D.C. As a freshman member of Congress, he made that trip. And he was befriended by a person who we would today call a lobbyist. That lobbyist was from the Big Four, the railroad interest in California. When that freshman member of Congress got to Washington, he introduced the Transcontinental Railroad Bill. That bill became law. About 15 years later, he introduced, as a senator, he introduced the first legislation calling for the women to have a right to vote. He never saw that happen because he died before that happened. He was a friend of Susan B. Anthony. He carried, had all kinds of correspondence with her, which you can see if you want to go to Searles Library in Nevada City. That man was my great-grandfather, Aaron Augustus Sargent. So I've grown up with that story. Of course, I never knew him because he died before I was ever born. But I've grown up with that story in my life, and I've always had an interest in what's happening in our country, a real deep concern. Fast forward about 100 years to the 1960s. I was there for the rebirth of the conservative movement in this country. I was in part of the Youth for Goldwater movement. I helped organize one of the largest rallies for Goldwater at the 1964 convention. At that convention, there was a little-known actor who spoke at that rally. He was our primary speaker. He then became governor, and after governor, he became president of the United States. We're talking, of course, about Ronald Reagan. Excuse me. If you look back at what Goldwater's policies were, strong national defense, support for the free market economy, and individual rights. Goldwater never got elected. But who implemented those policies? Those policies were implemented by Ronald Reagan. Peace through strength, the Cold War ended. Support for the free market economy, and the economy rebounded, and individual rights. So if you look back at my history, you'll see that where I'm coming from is the conservative principles that have made this country strong over the years.
Well, we know this won't be your first trip to Washington.
Well, no,
You've been there before.
Yes, I worked in Washington for 20 years. But I didn't do just legislation while I was there. I also worked doing regulatory work. I worked for the Department of Commerce in the area of export controls. So I understand the regulatory side of the fence. The export controls are very complicated regulations, and they're there for a very good purpose. But one of the issues we have is, what is the reason for regulations? A lot of the regulations we have, I don't think have constitutional authority for us to have them. Now, in the export control area, you did, because we control about 5% of U.S. exports. Why do we do that? Because there's a national security concern about them. And what we see in the regulatory agencies now is everyone wants to say, no, you can't do something. No, you can't do it. When I was doing it, one of the things I trained the people in the call center I was working in, that I oversaw, and when I went out to do seminars, was we want to have it, we want the person in the business community to be able to carry out the job, to get the export completed. But we don't want things that are nuclear, chemical, biological, or missile technology delivery systems to get into the wrong hands. So as we were talking to businessmen about what their concerns were, we tried to make sure that we could get them to get that export and have that export happen, but at the same time make it so the bad guys didn't get it. Now, What we see today is just the complete opposite. We see people saying, no, you can't do it, period. We don't care what impact it is on your business. Well, that's the wrong way to look at things. We should be out there helping the business community, not trying to stop them. But we should also be doing it in a way that's safe. We take a look at the cross-border pollution with the thing with EPA. People in Illinois have a problem with pollution, so they target Texas. Doesn't make any sense. You look at the drilling in the Gulf, where the Obama administration is dragging its heels on providing the permits to do it. But we ought to be drilling here, drilling now, and providing jobs. When the rigs go south, so do the jobs. XL Pipeline is another example. You have 20,000 jobs, they say, were nixed because Obama wouldn't allow the XL Pipeline to go through, and over 100,000 once it goes through. And unemployment is up. It doesn't make any sense. It just doesn't make any sense.
Let me jump over to another subject here, if you don't mind, Bill, that is of great interest to people who live along the Texas-Mexico border, and that's the issue of immigration. And currently there's flyovers of remote control aircraft, boots on the ground. Everybody's talking about the way they're going to solve the flow of immigration into the United States. What is your thinking on that? How do you think that that problem could be solved?
Well, first thing is, I don't think a border fence is going to work. If you look what happened in Berlin, they had all kinds of fencing and guards, people shooting people, and it just didn't work. And if you go to California or by Tijuana, there were all kinds of examples of people tunneling underneath the border. So that's not going to work. I think what we need to do is we need to empower all levels of law enforcement to enforce all the laws of our country, not just ICE, but we're talking about to the sheriff, to the local police, everybody. That way you increase the number of people who are going to be enforcing it. There have been proposals that we put the military on the border. I initially thought that was a good idea, except for one thing. In December of this year, and how the Republican Congress allowed this to go through on the House side is beyond me. But what happened was they provided they put a provision in the law that allows the U.S. military to stop a U.S. citizen with no rights. You don't have to give them an attorney. They can hold them for an indefinite period of time. They can send them to Gitmo if they want to. So if you have U.S. boots, meaning military, on the ground along the border, they would have that right, and they would have that authority to do that, which I think is wrong. I think, if I went to Congress, I would do everything in my power to try to get that removed from the legislation, from the law, because the military should not have that right. Anybody who's a U.S. citizen should have the same rights as we have everywhere else, which is you have a right to an attorney, you have a right to be defended, you have a right to be heard. And if U.S. law enforcement's involved, as opposed to the military, you're going to have that. I agree with using drones because you get real-time intelligence, and you send people to wherever the people are coming across the border. We have to do something to stop the issue, the inflow of people coming to this country, illegally. But you do it in a number of ways. The one I just mentioned is one. The other thing is, you've heard the adage, what you subsidize, you're going to get more of. Well, what are we subsidizing? We're subsidizing housing. We're subsidizing education. We're giving free food stamps to people here who are here illegally. That ought to stop, because once you cut off that, you're going to cut off some of the people who are going to want to come across that border. The other thing I think we need to do, and this will take a constitutional amendment, but we need to do something about the anchor baby issue. Right now, the Constitution says anybody who is born in this country, is a citizen. Well, I think we need to change that. So it says anybody who is here legally in this country becomes a citizen.
Talk with us a minute about your position on pro-life.
Well, I've felt all my life that it's important that we protect life. That's not just of the unborn; that's the elderly as well. people who, you know, like in Oregon, where they have assisted suicide and that kind of thing. That's just wrong. You know, life is sacred, and we need to protect it. And I believe life begins at conception. If you look at the X-rays and the sonograms and all that, that proves it. So you know, we need to protect the unborn, and you know, I think that the Supreme Court got it wrong, but we need to change that.
You know, here's another thing that just came to mind that I know you have a position on. In May of this year, my mother passed away, and during the settlement of her estate, myself and my siblings inherited a little bit of money. And just the other day, I got a tax bill from the government.
You're talking about the death tax.
The death tax. Yeah, my mother died, and they sent me a bill for it.
Well, as you know, I think we need to get rid of that. We need to eliminate it. Period. We need to reform the tax code. I'm not sure the exact way of doing it. That's the best way of doing it, but it's very complicated. You know, you need to oftentimes go to an accountant to get the job done, and there needs to be a simplification of it. It needs to be fair as well to everybody across the board. I don't know if the way to do it will be, one of the proposals is a fair tax where you have a certain percentage that everybody pays. And part of the problem we have here is that about 50% of the people in this country don't pay any taxes.
Or more.
You know, and so it's the rest of us who are paying them. And I think that everybody, I mean, if we're a U.S. citizen and we're getting the benefits of this country, I think everybody, I don't care how much they make, everybody ought to be paying something. Yeah, because that way you're invested. If you're not, it's like a campaign. A person gives you $5, all right? The person who gives you $5 is invested in your campaign because they've contributed to it, all right? If everybody's paying taxes, they're invested in this country, and I think that's the way to go. Now, I don't know exactly how you do it, and of course, you know, if you look at it, in reality, what's going to happen is the people who are going to do that are the people who are on the Ways and Means Committee of the House. So those people are the ones who are going to actually be writing that legislation. But what you do if you're not on that committee, when the chances of a freshman member being on that committee is not very good. If you're a freshman member, what you do is you get a hold of people who are on that committee, who are friends or like-minded, and you work with them and you help support them in getting the job done.
Tell us, Bill, about this 14th congressional district. What it encompasses. Who can vote for you in the geographic area of the 14th?
Anybody can vote for me if they're a registered voter.
Yeah.
In southern Brazoria County, in Galveston County.
Alvin.
Well, no. Maybe part of Alvin.
Mm-hmm.
Excuse me. There are a couple of maps out there, and they haven't yet decided. So, you know, one map says you have part of Alvin and all the rest of Brazoria County south of
This
there.
is all still up in the air, along with a primary a date for the primary election, right?
But you have certainly southern Brazoria County, Lake Jackson, Freeport, all of that. Then you've got all of the county of Galveston,
Mm-hmm.
and you have a small part of Chambers County where it connects to Jefferson, where nobody lives. I think there are.
That's almost Anahuac.
Just wetlands down there, and then you've got all of Jefferson County.
All of Jefferson County.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
So you have, so you've got Beaumont and all that.
No little piece of Harris.
No, sir.
I'll be. Huh. I thought maybe you had Webster or something.
No, sir. Now, see, one of the issues here, from my perspective, is that out of the people who are running, we have 10 people running for this race. All right, 7 of us live in the district. 3 of us do not. Now,
and it's not required.
No,
currently,
it's not required. I think that ought to
you can
change.
live in El Paso and run for this district. Can't you?
It'd be quite a commute, but you could do that. But I commend them for running. Okay, the question I ask is, why are they running for this seat? A lot of people who in this race have been preparing for this run for 3, 4, 5 years. I haven't been in this race except for 60 days. And you have, of the people who are running, you have 3 people who live in Galveston County. I think it's high time that people who we had a representative from Galveston County serving us. Now you go beyond that. It's important, I think, to have somebody who understands Galveston, and I do that. I mean, I've lived here. I don't have to move here.
And you still live here.
And I still live here. And if I get elected, I'm still going to live here. I'm going to go to Washington to serve, but I'm going to come back here as often as I can.
When you get elected?
I'd like to say when I get elected. Yes, sir. That's I'm in this to win.
Sure.
But I decided 60 days to run for this office. All right. And I had not planned to run for this office. I did not position myself to run for this office. And then it hit me, I'm supposed to do this. So I said, okay, I'll do this. And I look back at my history, my experience, and I have been positioning myself for this office, not intentionally, but I've got the congressional background. I've got the understanding of the county. I've worked in county government. I'm not an attorney, which I think is a good thing, because you've got over a third of the congressmen in Washington are attorneys, and it's supposed to be a House of Representatives.
Yeah.
Lawyers
making laws.
Well,
doesn't sound.
If I need an attorney, I'll hire one.
I never did feel good about that.
Well, if I need an attorney, I'll hire one. I'm the only one in the race who's a retired veteran. I signed up in 1961 as a seaman recruit in the Navy. I took an oath of office to support and defend the Constitution. I went for over 20 years and retired as lieutenant commander in the Navy. And I can tell you that when I retired, that oath of office that I took never retired with me. That oath of office will be with me as long as I live. So, those are some important differences between me and the other people in this race.
So before we, last word, as they say, as we commentators, interviewers, so you get the last word. You're the candidate.
Well, the bottom line is, you need somebody of integrity, somebody who's going to stand up for what's right, and somebody who's going to stick to the Constitution. And I've proven that I have integrity. Both Republicans and Democrats think I'm a good man, and that's because of the fact that I treat everybody the same. I don't give any favors to anybody. The bottom line is, what you see is what you get. I'm going to be honest. I'm going to stick to my guns, and I'm not going to cave when I get to Washington. And I'm going to come back here every time I can to sit down and to be with my constituents. We haven't had that. We haven't had a situation where you can sit in a diner like this and talk. People who live in the district can talk to their congressman, and I think that's important, because how is someone going to represent somebody if they don't talk to them, if they're not here with them? And not just people who are in high, powerful positions. I'm talking about anybody who walks in the door should be able to come and talk to me as a congressman.
We certainly would recommend that you talk to your constituency here in the diner. As we're doing now.
That's the 61st Street Diner, right?
61st Street Diner. And I want to say for our readers and listeners on the police news that this is about our third or fourth attempt, I don't know, to do this interview. And each time that we started off, we had to stop or delay it because of some technical difficulty on the part of the police news in our recording and video.
Or a baby crying.
Or a baby crying in the background. But yeah, we are at the 61st Street Diner. And this interview, of course, is going to be on Police News, www.thepolicenews.net, and you'll see Bill and I sitting there talking, and it'll stay up there forever and ever. You can look at it. You'll probably want to see it many times.
After I get elected.
After you get elected. Bill Sargent for Congress in the 14th District. Thanks, Bill. We appreciate you coming in. And
God bless you. Have a good day.
And I hope we finally got it right.
Okay.
Goodbye.